Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Monica Burton, and today we're going to be talking about back to school tips. Now, I've done other videos on this, but it's 2025, it's a new school year, so I wanted to get back on and do some healthy tips for helping your child transition back to school. So the first tip is prioritizing sleep. Now this one I get a lot. This is really important even for adults. You know, when we can prioritize sleep, it helps kids, get back into school and feel energized and ready to go, and it helps with focus and concentration. Now, what is the right amount of sleep depending on the age? Well, for preschoolers, so from ages 3 to 5, it's usually from 11 to 13 hours of sleep. For 5 to 9-year-olds, it is 10 to 11 hours of sleep. For 10 to 14-year-olds, it is 9 to 10 hours, and then 15 to 17, it's around 8 hours. So again, before you start back to school, or if you've already started school, sit down with your child and kind of talk about how to create a good sleep schedule, a good sleep routine, so they can wake up the next day and feel energized. The second tip is creating routines. So not only a sleep routine so they can prioritize sleep, but a routine of, when they wake up in the morning, what are some routines or rituals that they can kind of adjust to help with transition, so you're not constantly saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, which only intensifies the stress in the house. We want to focus on not saying hurry up. So what sort of morning routine? When they wake up, do they want breakfast right away? Do they want to put their clothes on? When do they want to brush their teeth? What time do they want to wake up? Depending on your age of your child, you can start giving them some choices and let them take accountability for, their morning routine. Now, coming home for the day, again, depending on the age of your child, if it's, if they don't have any extracurricular activities, when they get home, how do they want to kind of de-stress from the school day? Maybe have some connection time with you, and then, if they have any homework or if they have evening activities, that's the time to do it. So what sort of, after school routine do they want to have? Now, if some of them are in sports, that's typically a longer day for your kid. But when they do get home, it is still the same. What sort of transition do you want to have, or what sort of routine do you want to create in order just to help your middle schooler or teenager kind of create some time just to kind of decompress, de-stress, and then re-enter into the evening to start on homework and all of those things. And I think that that's really important. So I know we're talking about routines, but also part of the routine is transition. How do you transition from one, event to the next? And when we just kind of do this with our kids, what happens? They get stressed, we get stressed, you get frustrated, they get frustrated. So what are some good transitions, and what are some good routines that you can create and establish, which makes it, less stressful, and you can focus more on connection. And that's kind of the third thing, is how can you connect to your child? Usually during the summertime, you have a lot of, a little bit more time together. You have some freedom. You don't have to have the structure of like, okay, go to school, come back. What do you have for homework? What, sporting event or whatever activities you have. There's a little bit more freedom. And so there's more family time. And when you go back to school, you don't have as much. So I think it's important to create some time for connection. When you have really little kids, if they're gone for the day, they do want to just come home and snuggle with mom and dad. And I think that that's an important thing to do. So if you're going, if you're putting your kid to bed, a way to connect is to read a book to them. Or, even if that after school kind of routine or transition is just coming home and helping your kids, sitting down and reading a book or playing a game with them, something like that, that just focuses on individual time with no phones or anything like that. Now, if you do have older kids and they're in sports or any kind of extracurricular activity, I think when they come home, how do you connect? Often what ends up happening, either you're on the phone or they're on the phone. So I would recommend creating some time to put that phone aside and talk to your kids, create some connection. If they're older, maybe invite them into the kitchen and help them and ask them to help you cook dinner, or just sit and have a conversation with them. And I think that can create and facilitate a really good kind of openness to ask about their day, what's going on, kind of check in with their mental health. And I think that that's a good thing to do. And this kind of leads into, my next tip, which is plan at least one family dinner and or breakfast throughout the week. And, sometimes I get some pushback on this, well, like my teenager, they're never going to want to have family dinner. And that's simply not true. A lot of what the research shows is that teenagers actually really appreciate time where they sit down with their family and they have conversations, or, and the conversations can be a, 20 questions game, but a fun game, not a tell me everything about your day game. But really, we want to just create some openness and honesty, or openness and exploration on what's going on with your kids. So there is a website. It's called thefamilydinnerproject.org, and it was developed by a family therapist and a nutritional psychiatrist. Not only are there some great recipes on there, but there's some fun games to play with your kids. There's some good questions to ask, really at any developmental age. And so I highly recommend that you check them out. And again, plan that one dinner or one breakfast. Sometimes the evening is really busy and you might not have time for dinner. So do it at breakfast time, So just find a way to be creative and sit down as a family and connect. No phones or electronics are allowed. And the last tip is just create time for a check-in or a family meeting, so you can plan at least some sort of family activity throughout the week. And again, just one little family activity, and maybe it's having a board game night or going for a walk, just something that allows you and your child to connect to one another. So those are just some brief tips on how to help your kid transition back to school. I also want to let you know there's a great resource on NAMI.org. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Health, and they've created a great back to school tip where it's questions to ask, for your student, or resources for parents and caregivers. And there's also resources on there for teachers. So I went through it. It's a great resource, and I'll actually have it on the show notes for this YouTube channel, as well as a link to the familydinnerproject.org. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful, and I hope you're having a great transition back to school. Have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for updates on videos on relationships and mental health. Take care.